the Rat Pit. Hi, my name is Sarah Osborne. I was an art teacher and a track coach, and I'm going to share with you how I screen printed these shirts for my athletes. For quick context, the pits that we practice in sometimes have rats in them, so that's why we call it the Rat Pit. The screen printing equipment that I use in this video belongs to the school. I bought it used off of a community member using money from a grant. So let's get started. You are going to begin by determining how much screen you need, so you'll roll it out to stretch over your frame, cut it, and then I like to put gloves on because the spray adhesive is pretty sticky and can get on your hands. Next, I'm going to bring the frame to a separate area because you don't want to lay the screen down on an area that you just put adhesive on. You're also going to notice that I have a messy mat underneath, so I'm going to lay down my screen. Had I laid down my screen in the other place, the screen would have stuck to the adhesive and caused problems. So I took it to a separate table and laid it down carefully. So I will start to bring the screen back and press the screen onto that wooden frame, making sure that there aren't any creases or that the screen is loose, but I want to make sure it's nice and tight. So here I am starting to feel what side of the screen is smooth and what side of the screen is rough. The smooth side is the side that has the emulsion on it. This will be important to know for the next part. So you'll have your design on your paper, and you need to lay the paper face down on the smooth side of the screen. This will help once we flash it. So I'm just going to take some Scotch tape and tape it right down in one spot. I will walk it over to the flash machine. How this machine works is that it flashes a really bright light, and that bright light pierces through the emulsion. It catches the black part of your design and it burns away the emulsion in that spot. So I clean the machine. I'm making sure that my image is face down directly on the glass. I'm going to put a piece of clean paper and some cardboard to add pressure because this machine is pretty old. So I'm going to set the setting to about 9 or 10 of the flash. Afterward, I grab that black handle and I push hard down evenly. So I grabbed both corners and I pushed down hard. You'll see that I'm going to take the screen out and check to see how well the flash worked to burn through the emulsion. So I'm going to peel back and look in the light, and I can notice there's a couple of spots that aren't quite piercing through like I want them to. So I'm going to do it again. This time when I flash, I noticed that the emulsion burnt through a lot better, more clearly, so I'm going to take that clean paper and show you what it looks like to have that screen burnt through. So now there are holes that are the image that I will pass ink through to be on my shirt or on paper. So I had to do it one more time to make sure that it was really nice and crisp. So next, I'm going to take packing tape and create a frame around my image. I'm going to do this on the side where I can see the words in the correct direction. So I'm making a frame. This just helps with cleanup. It helps when I'm using the squeegee later. After I lay this final piece of tape down, I'm going to walk over and grab my metal frames to make a wooden frame sandwich. So the metal frames have two different types. I'm showing you my wooden frame, and one of the frames has a lip on the inside of it and the other one is just flat on both sides. So the lip will face toward the middle of the screen, and that will help to tighten the screen so that ink can pass through it better. Next, I'm going to grab some binder clips and secure the frame in 8 spots, 2 areas around each corner. So not in the middle of the frame sides, but near the corners. You'll see why later, because when we put it into the clamp, we need to have that flat area to clamp onto instead of clamping onto a binder clip. And as you can see here, I'm pretty pleased with how the process is going so far. So I'm going to bring my screen down to the shop where I will start to print. So we arrive at the shop. The first thing I need to do when I get into the shop is to turn on the dryer conveyor. So I'm going to walk over to the pizza oven looking machine and flip on the main switch, and that will get the machine warmed up. So I'm going to go into my black cabinet and select the palette knife, the squeegee, and the ink color that I want to use. As you can see, there are many choices of options. Some of the squeegees are wider than others. I chose to use a light blue, and I'm going to spin you around on the octopus is what I like to call it, because it has multiple arms. So I'm going to do a test print of my screen first, just using a piece of newsprint. I need to clamp my project into the clamp above. A big mistake that a lot of beginners make is putting their words backwards. So they'll put the rough side up of the screen and then their words are going to print backwards. So I am making sure that my words are the right way so it will print correctly on the paper. So I just screwed down all the clamps evenly. I'm making sure it's lining up where I like it. Next, I'm going to grab ink. I like to say if an elephant was brushing its teeth, put that amount of toothpaste on the palette knife. So I smear that across the top of the packing tape, making sure that it would cover both ends of my image, that it's wide enough. Afterwards, I'm going to grab my squeegee, and here I'm going to show you how to not pull the squeegee. A lot of beginners will pull it really horizontally, but the squeegee actually needs to be pretty upright. That will help to make hard contact. You're going to notice I really didn't get the ink all the way pulled, so I did a second pull. I would not recommend doing more than 2 pulls on a screen print, or else your image is going to be very smudged. So I'm going to check. And it's pretty good. So I'm going to show you how that first test print went. And again, I'm feeling pretty pleased with how the process is going. So next, I'm going to show you a different angle, and I will print on my first shirt. Notice how I basically put the shirt on the board. The neck of the shirt is at the top, and I'm making sure that it's stretched out, that there's not wrinkles in the shirt, because those wrinkles will catch in the ink. So you can slide the board back and forth. I'm checking to make sure that the design will fall on the spot where I want it on the shirt, kind of middle of the shirt in the front. I'll put on gloves because the ink is oil-based, so it will get all over your hands and will be difficult to come off. So again, I smear that elephant toothpaste amount of ink at the top. I'll grab my squeegee. I selected a squeegee that was wide enough for my project. There are wider squeegees or thinner ones, but as you can see, the ink is passing through those spots. And I'm going to lift and check to see how the shirt printed. And I noticed, okay, around the area of the words, it was kind of weak. So next time I can know to either apply more ink or maybe more pressure toward the end. Next, my conveyor is all warmed up, and what the heat does is it evenly cures the ink so that it doesn't come off onto your hands and that it dries quicker. So there's my first print. You could see that the conveyor setting was shown earlier. I'm going to do my second shirt. So here I'm going to show you the process from a third angle that you can see. I slowed down the squeegee so that you can really see what it should look like. I'm applying downward pressure as well as pulling back. I'm not going to push too hard. but you can scrape the extra ink with the palette knife back into the bucket because you really don't need that much. So here's how my second shirt turned out, and I'm going to also just print my third quickly onto a black shirt this time. Next, I'm going to bring the black shirt over to the conveyor and take my time just waiting for it to come out of the conveyor. Looks pretty good. I'm checking to see if any of the ink is still tacky. If it is, I can put it through the conveyor again and it is good to go. This last white shirt turned out pretty well. Again, I am feeling very pleased with how the process is going. So I am going to set all the shirts in one area, and next I need to begin the cleanup process. This process includes grabbing a paper towel. Usually white soft paper towels are good. First, I'm going to use my palette knife to scrape any extra ink off. I am going to put a paper underneath while I am cleaning this, just so that the extra ink doesn't get on the board for later. So I use kind of a rough paper towel, but I would suggest actually using a t-shirt or a shop rag because the soft material helps to get the ink up really nicely. So I'm going to scrub the top and the back. Sometimes there are ink thinning solutions, but you can just use a dry white paper towel or t-shirt. So I'm going to clean all my tools, scrub all the ink off. As I said before, this ink is oil-based. There are water-based screen printing inks, but the majority of what I had available was oil-based, so it can be difficult to get out. I am going to also seal up the ink and bring it back to the cabinet for safekeeping. And next, I will loosen the clamps of the screen and take it back to the art classroom. From here, I'm showing you that when you use just regular soap and water, the ink doesn't come out very nicely off of your skin. So sometimes it's helpful to have oil-based products, for example baby oil, that you can rub into your skin, and that will lift the oil from the ink off your skin off nicely while being pretty safe. So I'm going to wash my hands again after having used that, and the ink comes off of my arms pretty nicely, even though I used gloves. Now here I want to review some of the mistakes that happened. You're going to notice on my original design here that there was some gray. So when I was editing that, I should have made sure that was plain white and black, because the flash machine accounted for that through the screen. So that area between the rat's legs and tails, it now has ink on it. So comparing all 4 shirts that I printed on, I'm just looking for mistakes. I see that there were some ink smudges. I should have had clean shirts, been more careful as I was laying them down. However, overall, this was a pretty successful screen printing session. So here's a picture of my 2 athletes, jumpers, wearing the shirt. These are brother and sister, and they decided to match for their last meet of the year.